The truth about emotional fragility, and how to train yourself to rise above it. Have you ever had your entire day ruined by something that didn't even seem that serious? Maybe someone didn't reply to your message, maybe you caught a strange look from a coworker, or someone said something, just one sentence, and it stuck with you for hours, spinning in your mind. And then you wonder, why does this bother me so much? Why can't I just brush it off like other people seem to? And the worst part, you start to feel weak, overly sensitive, broken. Even. But let me tell you something that might shift everything. You're not weak. You're just untrained. That reaction you have, the overthinking, the emotional spirals, the anxiety over being judged or rejected, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means no one ever taught you how to deal with life's mental storms. And how could they? School taught you algebra, not how to stay calm when someone criticizes you. You learned how to write essays, but not how to handle a moment of silence that feels like rejection. You were told, don't let it get to you, but never shown how not to. The world throws a lot at us: judgment, misunderstanding, rejection, emotional pressure. It's constant, it's noisy, it's unpredictable, and if you're like most people, it wears you down. But here's the truth: you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to stand firm. And that is what Stoicism is all about. Not the ancient kind where you imagine someone cold, robotic, and emotionless, but the modern kind. The practical kind where you learn how to respond to chaos with clarity, where you stop living on emotional autopilot, where you train your inner world to be steady, no matter how wild the outer world becomes. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be calm all the time, it teaches you to recognize the storm rising inside you, and choose not to be swept away by it. And let's be honest, most people don't live that way. They lash out because they feel disrespected, they panic when someone ignores them, they shrink when they feel misunderstood, and they chase validation like oxygen. But what if you didn't? What if you had the inner strength to stand in the middle of it all, the criticism, the silence, the chaos, and remain calm? Not because you're faking it, not because you're numb, but because you've trained for this. Imagine becoming someone who doesn't react instantly to every slight, who doesn't explain themselves just to feel seen, who doesn't need constant approval to feel okay. Someone who can say, that doesn't deserve my energy, and truly mean it. This is not just about being chill, it's about building emotional mastery. Because the truth is, life isn't going to get easier, people aren't going to suddenly become kinder, more sensitive, or more validating. So you have two choices. You can keep being tossed around by every little comment, or you can train yourself to rise above it. Think of it like going to the gym, but for your mind. At first, everything feels heavy, you overreact. You get offended. You explain yourself when you don't need to, but over time, you get stronger, you stop reacting, you start observing, and you begin to realize, not everything deserves your peace. That's the turning point, when you stop asking, why did they do that to me? And start asking, why am I letting this shake me? It's the moment you go from victim to master. And no, it doesn't happen overnight, there's no switch to flip, but there is a path to follow. A way to become emotionally resilient, not because the world becomes softer, but because you become stronger. This isn't about ignoring your emotions. It's about understanding them, not about pretending you don't care. It's about learning what truly deserves your care. And once you begin that path, once you decide to stop being reactive and start being deliberate, life begins to feel different. Not because things change, but because you do. That's what this video is here to help you with. Not tips, not surface level advice, but real, grounded principles, drawn from Stoic philosophy, modern psychology, and real life, to help you build a kind of strength that no one can take away. Because let's face it, the world will continue to judge, people will misunderstand you, things will go wrong, but none of it has to steal your peace, unless you let it. So if you're tired of being easily triggered, tired of losing sleep over small things, tired of feeling like your emotions are always in someone else's hands, then stay with me. Because what you're about to learn might just change how you live, not on the outside, but deep within. And that, my friend, is where real strength begins. Principle 1. Emotional discipline, the foundation of inner power. Let me ask you something that most people never pause to think about. Are your emotions controlling you, or are you in control of them? Because here's a hard truth. Feeling something is automatic, reacting to it is optional. See, most of us were never taught that we believe our reactions are just who we are. someone disrespects us. And we snap, someone ignores us. And we spiral, someone doubts us. And we rush to prove them wrong. It feels natural, but it's not strength, it's programming. Emotional discipline means recognizing that you are not your impulses, you are not your first reaction, you are the space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your freedom. Let me give you an example. There was a man named David, sharp, logical, a seasoned attorney, but every time a colleague dismissed his opinion, it hit him like a punch to the gut. His mind would race. They don't respect me. They're out to undercut me. By the time he got home, he was drained, not from work, but from waging a mental war no one else could see. Then one day, during a small hearing, a junior associate accused him of breaking protocol. Everyone braced for a blow-up. But David said nothing, he just kept presenting his case. Later, someone asked why he didn't defend himself. He replied, "Because it wouldn't have changed anything. It wasn't worth my energy." That is emotional discipline. Not silence out of weakness, but stillness out of strength, not repression, but restraint, the decision to choose your response, not let it be chosen for you. Now let's be clear. Discipline doesn't mean you don't feel, you still get hurt. You still feel disrespected, but you don't react just because you feel. You don't hand the steering wheel of your life to every passing emotion. Because emotions are like weather, they come and go, but if you let a thunderstorm decide where you drive, you're going to crash. Emotional discipline is about learning how to navigate through the storm, not by pretending the rain isn't there, but by refusing to let it flood your decision-making. Here's a perspective shift that changed everything for me. Most of our pain doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the meaning we assign to it. Think about it. Someone doesn't reply to your message, and suddenly you feel abandoned. They forget to compliment you, and now you feel invisible. They interrupt you, and you feel disrespected. But the event itself, it's neutral. You're the one who gave it the power to hurt. So ask yourself, is it really them, or is it the expectations inside you that were never questioned? Because the person who controls your emotions controls your life. And here's the kicker. That control is yours to take back. The philosopher Seneca once said, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." So what does that look like in real life? It means when others raise their voice, you lower yours. When someone tries to provoke you, you stay still. When you're misunderstood, you don't rush to explain, not because you don't care, but because you've decided what's worth caring about. And most things aren't. Let's be honest. How many arguments have you won and still walked away feeling worse? How many times did proving a point actually bring you peace? Chances are, not many. Because emotional discipline isn't about winning. It's about preserving your energy for what truly matters. Every time you react to nonsense, to petty jabs, passive-aggressive digs, or someone else's insecurity, you're leaking energy, and over time, those leaks drain you more than any big problem ever could. So how do you build this discipline? You start by observing yourself. Notice your emotional triggers. Ask, why did that bother me? What expectation did it violate? What insecurity did it tap into? And then, here's the most important part. Pause before responding, pause before defending, pause before reacting. That pause is where power begins. That pause is the first brick in the fortress you're building around your inner world. It's not easy, it's not instant, but with each pause, you rewire your mind. You go from being reactive to reflective, from being driven by ego to guided by clarity. Eventually, the things that used to throw you off won't even register, not because they stopped happening, but because you stopped giving them access to your peace. And that's what emotional discipline gives you. Not perfection, not numbness, but choice. The ability to feel without being ruled, to care without being consumed, to stand your ground, not out of pride, but out of principle. So the next time someone tries to push your buttons, remember, you don't have to play the game, you don't have to prove anything. You can simply say, with your silence, your stillness, your restraint, "This isn't worth my peace." And just like that, you become a person not easily moved, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Principle 2. Silence is strength. Here's something we rarely talk about in a world that's addicted to noise. Silence is not weakness, silence is power. We live in a culture where everyone feels the need to respond to everything. Every insult must be clapped back, every misunderstanding must be corrected, every opinion needs to be defended, right now. And loudly. But what if that's not strength? What if true power isn't found in how loudly you speak, but in what you choose not to say? You see, Real silence, the kind that comes from inner discipline, not from fear, is one of the most underrated forms of strength you can develop. Because here's the truth. Most people don't actually want to understand you. They want to provoke you, they want your reaction, they want to see you triggered, rattled, pulled down into the same messy emotional arena they're stuck in. It's a game, a dirty one, and the moment you play it, you've already lost. Because no one walks out of a mud fight clean, even if you think you won. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to respond, you do something far more powerful. You signal that your peace isn't up for grabs. You let the chaos pass by without letting it in, and you send a clear message. You don't get to decide how I feel. That's not retreat. That's mastery. There's a quote from Marcus Aurelius that says it all. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In other words, the world can scream, insult, accuse, or misunderstand you, but none of it has power unless you give it power. And silence? Silence is how you take that power back. Let me tell you a story that illustrates this perfectly. There was a man named Ethan, a talented developer at a tech firm. Smart, capable, but sensitive. He worked under a boss who was, well, let's just say the type who loved control and sarcasm more than leadership. At first, Ethan tried to fight back. He corrected his boss in meetings. He made sharp, logical points. He proved himself over and over, but you know what? That got him nothing but more isolation. Every time he won the argument, he lost respect. Why? Because he was playing their game. Then something changed in a tense meeting. His boss made another passive-aggressive jab in front of the team, but this time, Ethan said nothing. He simply looked up, nodded, and kept taking notes. No drama, no outburst, just calm, controlled presence. Later that day, for the first time ever, his boss sent him a short message. I appreciate your professionalism. He didn't earn respect by speaking louder, he earned it by knowing when not to speak at all. That's the paradox. People listen more when you speak less because your silence says something powerful. I don't need to prove anything to you. Think about your own life. How many times have you wasted time and energy explaining yourself to someone who already made up their mind? How often have you argued just to defend your pride, not because it truly mattered? How much of your peace has been sacrificed on the altar of being understood? Here's something to try. A small but powerful practice. Pick one day a week, and on that day, commit to only responding to things that help you grow. Everything else? Let it go. Let it drift by like background noise. You don't have to fix every misunderstanding. You don't have to respond to every false comment. You don't have to explain yourself to people who don't care to understand. Not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you've risen above it. And that is when the world starts seeing you differently. Because most people are easily triggered. Most people are predictable. They react without thinking, speak without pause, and give away their energy to things that don't matter. But not you. You're training yourself to be different, to be deliberate, to be unmoved by petty chaos. Let me put it this way. If your peace of mind can be stolen by a stranger's tone, a text message, or a coworker's passive jab, then your power still lives outside you. But if you can hear it and not respond, if you can feel the urge to react and choose silence instead, then you're no longer driven by ego, you're driven by intention. You've become the still point in a spinning world, and people feel that. They may not understand it, they may even mistake your silence for weakness, but that's fine. Let them. Because here's the beautiful truth. You don't owe anyone a reaction, you owe yourself peace. And when you stop being reactive, you start being strategic. You stop responding just to feel seen, you start responding only when it serves your growth. So the next time someone tries to bait you into an emotional war, pause, breathe. Smile if you want, but say nothing. Because silence, real silence, isn't the absence of something, it's the presence of control. And in that presence, you will find something most people never experience. Freedom. Principle 3. Heal so you no longer react. Here's a question you might not expect in a video about strength. What if your biggest reactions have nothing to do with the present moment? What if that comment that stings, that silence that bothers you, that tone that sets you off, isn't really about now? What if it's coming from something old, a wound inside you that never fully healed? Because the truth is, people can't really hurt you unless there's already something inside you that's sensitive to being touched. They're not inserting the knife. They're pressing on a scar. We often say, that person made me angry, or they made me feel small. But what if they didn't? What if they just revealed where you're still carrying pain? Psychologist Carl Jung called this the shadow, the part of ourselves we deny, suppress, or try to forget, the part we never shine a light on, and because we don't deal with it consciously, it runs our lives unconsciously. That's why healing is essential, because if you don't heal it, you'll keep reacting to it, again and again, thinking the problem is out there, when in fact, the storm is inside. Let me share a story that brings this home. There was a man named Elliot. Quiet, kind, incredibly talented. He worked in a creative agency known for its fast-paced, competitive environment. One day, during a heated meeting, his boss told him bluntly, "You're too soft to survive in this industry." It was just a sentence, but it hit him like a punch. Elliot said nothing. He nodded. He held it together. But later that night, he was trembling, not with fear, with rage. Why had that one comment affected him so deeply? Instead of lashing out at his boss, his partner, or his friends, like he might have done in the past, he did something different. He sat with the emotion, he traced it, and suddenly, it took him back to his childhood. He remembered how every time he showed emotion, his father would say, "Real men don't cry, don't be soft." And just like that, he connected the dots. He wasn't just reacting to a comment in the meeting room, he was reliving an old script, a script that told him being sensitive made him weak, that expressing himself would lead to rejection, that his softness made him unworthy. The emotion wasn't the problem, the story beneath it was. And for the first time in his life, Elliot realized, he didn't need to get rid of the feeling, he just needed to understand where it came from. That's what healing looks like. Not dramatic breakdowns, not pretending to forgive what you haven't processed, but the quiet courage to ask yourself, why does this trigger me so much? What memory is this emotion tied to? Am I responding to this moment, or to an old version of me that's still stuck in the past? Most of the time, we're not reacting to people, we're reacting to our pain, projected onto them. And the more unaware we are of that pain, the more we blame others for causing it. But once you start bringing those shadows into the light, everything changes. You stop exploding over small things, you stop shutting down when someone doesn't respond the way you hoped, you stop overanalyzing every interaction, because you're no longer being ruled by buried wounds. Stoicism teaches us this too, just in different words. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher, didn't pretend he never felt sadness, anger, or loneliness. He wrote about them, he studied them, not to indulge them, but to gain clarity. Because you can't change what you don't understand, and you can't master what you refuse to face. Here's a powerful practice. The next time you feel triggered, pause. Don't immediately argue, don't immediately explain, don't immediately withdraw. Instead, ask yourself, what is this reaction pointing to in me? What's the earliest memory that feels like this? Then trace it, sit with it, study it, not as the enemy, but as a signal. Because every reaction is trying to teach you something. And once you see the source clearly, you begin to rewrite your emotional code. You stop being a puppet pulled by past pain, and start becoming the author of your own emotional story. Now, let's be real. This work is not easy. It's harder than any fitness challenge, harder than any productivity hack, because it requires you to face yourself, your hidden wounds, your insecurities, your old narratives. But it's also the most rewarding work you'll ever do. Because once you heal, you stop leaking power. You stop letting random strangers ruin your day. You stop overreacting to things that don't deserve that much energy. You become calm, not because nothing bothers you, but because you've done the work to understand why it once did. So ask yourself this today. Are your reactions really about what's happening now, or are they echoes from something you haven't yet healed? If it's the latter, don't run from it. Face it, trace it, transform it. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who never feel pain, they're the ones who've walked through it, and come out on the other side. Still open, still grounded, still free. And when you get there, you'll know. Healing isn't about forgetting the past, it's about finally being free from reacting to it. Principle 4. Your energy is your asset. Let me ask you something that might change the way you live your life. If your energy was money, would you still be spending it the way you do now? Because here's the thing. Most people don't burn out because they're doing too much, they burn out because they're giving too much of themselves to the wrong things. It's not the big responsibilities that drain you. It's the unseen leaks, the mental clutter, the conversations you keep replaying, the tension you carry over what someone said or didn't say, the quiet resentment that sits in your chest but never gets resolved. Energy isn't just a metaphor, it's your most limited, non-renewable daily currency, and if you don't learn how to manage it, the world will spend it for you. Here's what the Stoics understood. You don't start mastering your emotions by suppressing them, you start by choosing where your energy goes. Because where your energy flows, your life follows. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And if that feels a little too abstract, let me bring it down to earth. Think about your smartphone. You close the apps. You dim the brightness. You monitor your battery. Why? Because you know if it dies, you're disconnected. You're done. But your mind, your life force, most people treat it like it's infinite. They scroll through toxic content, they entertain drama, they stay in conversations long after they've stopped being meaningful, they say yes when every fiber in their body screams no. Then they wonder why they feel so anxious, so tired, so disconnected. Let me share a story. Richard was a hard-working guy, successful on paper, but always exhausted. He wasn't running marathons or working 20-hour days, he just never had peace. His mind was constantly on. Checking emails, replaying arguments, imagining worst-case scenarios, keeping tabs on people who no longer mattered. He couldn't sleep. He was always on edge. Eventually, chronic insomnia landed him in the hospital. And guess what? The doctors found nothing physically wrong because the problem wasn't in his body, it was in his boundaries. That night, Richard sat down and made 2 lists. What nourishes me? What drains me? What shocked him was that 80% of his daily exhaustion came from just 20% of the situations he kept tolerating. Not dramatic events, just little emotional leaks. He started cutting things out: no messages after 10 p.m., no more scrolling first thing in the morning. He unfollowed toxic accounts, stopped explaining himself to people who didn't care to understand. And slowly, something shifted. He didn't become distant, he became clear. More present, more at peace, more himself. And that's the point. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's essential. If you keep giving yourself away to everything that asks for your attention, you'll have nothing left for what actually matters. So here's the practice. Step 1. Audit your energy. Take 10 minutes, list out the things that energize you, that make you feel grounded, inspired, and strong. Then list what drains you: people, habits, thoughts, notifications, news cycles. Be brutally honest. You'll notice a pattern. The energy drainers are usually things you tolerate, not things you love. Not things that demand excellence, just things you haven't said enough to. Step 2. Set boundaries. Not walls, boundaries. Turn off notifications. Say no without explanation. Unsubscribe, unfollow, disengage. Because every time you respond to something that doesn't deserve your energy, you're saying no to something that does. Your creativity, your relationships, your rest, your peace. Those things need room to breathe, and you can't make room if you're still emotionally hoarding everything that isn't yours to carry. And here's the truth you already know. Deep down, most of the things that disturb your peace aren't even your responsibility. Someone's misunderstanding? Not yours to fix. A stranger's opinion? Not yours to change. A friend's drama that keeps repeating? Not yours to absorb. As the Stoics would say, some things are up to us, and some things are not. The problem is we spend most of our energy trying to fix what isn't ours, and that's why we're exhausted. Not from carrying our own weight, but from trying to lift burdens that don't belong to us. So ask yourself right now, who is using your energy without your permission? How much of your attention is being stolen by things that don't matter 5 days from now? Let alone 5 years? What would your life feel like if your mind was no longer scattered in 10 directions? The answers might surprise you, and they might hurt a little. Because you'll see how much power you've given away, and how much you can reclaim. But only if you're willing to decide. I don't owe every situation a reaction. I don't owe every person access to my peace. From now on, treat your energy like gold. Be generous with it where it counts, but ruthless in guarding it from what drains you. Because the calm, focused, resilient version of you, they're not buried somewhere far off. They're just on the other side of boundaries you haven't built yet. Principle 5. You don't need to be understood. Let's get real about something few people will ever say out loud. You don't need to be understood to live a meaningful, powerful life. It sounds simple, but let's be honest, most of us spend an unbelievable amount of time, energy, and emotional bandwidth trying to explain ourselves. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be got. But what if I told you this constant need to be understood by everyone is quietly robbing you of your peace? Because here's the truth. Not everyone is capable of understanding you, not because they're bad, not because you're complicated, but because everyone walks through life wearing the lens of their own experience. You can speak from truth, and they'll still hear you through their wounds. You can move with integrity, and they'll still label you based on their bias. You can pour your heart out, and they'll reduce it to something small because that's all they can hold. And when that happens, you face a choice. Do you shrink yourself to fit their frame, or do you continue living in alignment with your truth, even if no one claps for it? That's where real inner strength begins. Let me share a story. Malcolm was a strategic advisor. Smart, precise, respected. He believed in clarity, in the power of communication, in building bridges. But during a high-stakes collaboration, he noticed a serious ethical flaw in a proposed plan. He spoke up, not to sabotage, not to rebel, but because his principles wouldn't let him stay silent. And what happened? He wasn't applauded, he was criticized, branded as difficult, idealistic, and too intense. He could have defended himself, he could have launched a 10-page email explaining everything, he could have argued, pleaded, tried to win them over. But he didn't. He walked away. He left the project, he moved to a new city, he opened his own independent consultancy. And when someone later asked him why he didn't fight harder to be understood, he said, "Because I don't need to be understood. I just need to stay true to myself." That's power. Not the loud kind, not the kind that needs a stage or a spotlight, but the kind that says, "I know who I am. I know why I act. And I don't need your approval to keep walking my path." Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to communicate, of course. Clarity matters, connection matters, but only up to a point. Because when you realize your worth isn't something others grant you, it's something you live into. One choice at a time, you stop chasing understanding like it's oxygen. You stop explaining yourself to people who've already made up their minds. You stop bending just to make someone else more comfortable with your truth. And that doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. Here's a practice I want you to try the next time you're misunderstood. Before you react, pause and ask yourself this one question. Will reacting right now change anything, or is it just my ego scrambling to feel in control? Because if the answer is no, if explaining won't build connection, won't heal, won't help, then maybe it's not worth the breath. Let your actions speak for you, let your consistency be your explanation, let your life prove your values. And if people still misunderstand, let them. Because here's a truth most people never realize. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You owe yourself alignment. And if you keep chasing validation, you'll end up abandoning your own inner compass just to be accepted in places that were never meant for you. So, ask yourself, are you living for understanding, or for integrity? Are you shaping your actions around how others will perceive you, or around what you know is right? Can you walk away without looking back, even when no one claps, no one agrees, and no one gets it? Because that's what real emotional maturity looks like. The ability to stand calm in the storm of misunderstanding. To hold your truth quietly while the world tries to twist it. To know you are worthy even if no one else recognizes it. That's Stoicism. Not indifference, but selective engagement, not coldness, but clarity, not apathy, but sovereignty. So the next time you're misjudged, misread, or mislabeled, don't waste your energy proving anything. Just smile, breathe, keep walking. Because people who are at peace with themselves have nothing left to prove to the world. Principle 6. Feeling doesn't mean you have to react. Let's talk about something that can completely change your emotional life. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. That may sound simple, even obvious, but think about how most people actually live. They feel disrespected. They lash out, they feel ignored. They spiral, they feel embarrassed. They retreat, they feel frustrated, they explode. It's like being a puppet on a string, pulled around by every single emotion. But here's the truth that most people never learn. Emotions are signals, not commands. They're there to inform you, not to control you. They're like the dashboard lights on a car. They tell you something's going on under the hood, but you wouldn't grab a sledgehammer and start smashing your engine just because the oil light came on. And yet, that's how many of us live. Someone triggers an emotion, and boom, we react. No space, no pause, just instant combustion. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could feel anger, without letting it become destruction, feel sadness, without drowning in it, feel fear, without letting it control your next move? That's where emotional freedom begins. That's where self-mastery starts. Let me tell you a true story that brings this home. Andrew was a 40-year-old manager at a successful software company by all accounts. He had it together: experience, leadership, intelligence. But he had a problem: anger. He wasn't violent, he wasn't cruel, but he had a short fuse if someone challenged him in a meeting. He'd raise his voice if a coworker made a mistake. He'd criticize hard, and for years, he told himself this was just passion. But beneath that, he knew the truth. He was losing control, and it was costing him. His temper had strained his marriage. He'd lost friends, and one day, after an especially harsh meeting, his team started avoiding him. That night, he sat alone, not angry, but ashamed. That's when he made a decision. He wasn't going to let anger define him anymore. He started therapy. He read Marcus Aurelius every morning, and one day, during another team meeting, something happened. A colleague, younger, less experienced, publicly called him out as indecisive. Old Andrew would have clapped back, shut him down, proved his point. But this time, he paused. He felt the emotion rise, the heat, the sting, the impulse to defend. But instead of reacting, he said, "I hear you. Let's talk one-on-one after this." That was it. No fireworks, no ego battle, just a moment of awareness. And afterward, something strange happened. People respected him more, not because he won anything, but because he had chosen his response instead of being ruled by reaction. That's the shift. That's the real flex. Because anyone can react, but to pause, to choose, that's power. And here's the thing. This isn't just about anger, it's about every emotion. Resentment, jealousy, loneliness, shame. You don't have to suppress these feelings. You don't have to pretend they're not there, but you also don't have to let them run your life. You are allowed to feel everything and act on almost nothing. That's emotional discipline in action. So how do you start? Try this. The next time you feel triggered, pause for 3 seconds. Just 3 seconds. Inhale, exhale. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to do aligned with who I want to be? Because that space, that little pause, is where you take back your power. It's where the reactive version of you ends, and the intentional version begins. And sure, it won't be perfect. You'll slip, you'll catch yourself mid-reaction and think, I did it again. That's okay. Progress isn't about never reacting, it's about reacting less, slower, smarter. And eventually, you'll get to a place where the things that once set you off barely register anymore. Not because you've gone numb, but because you've grown wise. Because the strong man, or woman, isn't the one who shouts the loudest, it's the one who knows when to stay silent, who can feel deeply without becoming chaotic, who can walk away without needing to win every battle. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to deny emotion, but to decouple it from automatic action. To feel the fire, but not let it burn down what we're trying to build. So the next time something hits you hard, a word, a look, a moment, remember this. Feeling isn't weakness, but letting every feeling become a reaction is. You have the right to pause, you have the right to breathe, you have the right to choose. And sometimes, that quiet little choice is the loudest statement of strength you'll ever make. Principle 7. Value lies in action. Let me ask you a question that might sound simple, but hits deeper than most people expect. When no one's watching, who are you really? Not the version of you in the group chat, not the version on social media, not even the version you show at work. But the version behind closed doors, the version who keeps going, or quietly gives up when there's no reward. No audience, no applause. That's the version that tells the truth about your character. And that's the version Stoicism invites us to build. You see, we live in a world obsessed with being seen. We post our progress, we share our goals, we wait for validation. Likes, approval. But real value, the kind that can't be taken away, doesn't come from being noticed, it comes from the actions you take when no one is paying attention. It's not what you feel, it's what you do. Not what you plan to be, but what you consistently show up as. Day after day, quietly, deliberately, with integrity. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Thomas, not famous, not flashy, an independent game developer who worked out of a cramped apartment. No investors, no fan base, no one cheering him on. For 3 years, he coded, designed, wrote, and built a game, completely alone. No one asked him to do it, no one was waiting for it. Most people thought he was wasting his time. But Thomas kept going, not because of what he would get, but because of what he believed. He believed in the world he was creating, he believed in the work itself, in the act of showing up for something meaningful. Eventually, his game did get noticed. Someone big played it. It went viral, and it became a hit, but by that point, Thomas had already moved on to his next project, because for him, the success was never the point. The process was the point. The discipline was the reward. The act of creating, with or without attention, was the real measure of value. That's rare, and that's power. Because when your value lives in your action, not in the response it gets, you become untouchable. You don't need applause to validate your effort. You don't need recognition to do what's right. You're not waiting for permission to be excellent. You just are. Now let's flip the lens for a second. How many things have you not done, just because no one would see it? How many ideas have you left unfinished, because no one would like it, or praise it, or promote it? How often have you held back kindness, creativity, or courage, waiting for the right audience? But here's the Stoic truth. If it's the right thing, do it even if no one knows, even if no one ever will. Because that's where your character is built, in the actions you take when there's nothing in it for you, except alignment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's not about perfection, it's about showing up, following through, doing the work, not to be admired, but to be true. So here's the practice. Keep the promise no one asked you to make. Be kind when no one's watching. Finish the task no one knows you started. Give without credit. Choose integrity when it's inconvenient. And do it not because the world is watching, but because you are. Because that version of you, the one that only you see, is the foundation of your real worth. And when you start living like that, something shifts. You stop craving external approval, you stop chasing applause, you stop being pulled by the tides of public opinion. Instead, you become rooted, solid, unshakable. Because you know that what truly matters isn't loud, it doesn't need a hashtag or a headline. It's quiet, it's consistent, and it's yours. So if you've been waiting for the right moment, the perfect audience, or the guaranteed outcome before you act, stop waiting. Do the thing, finish the project, make the call, say the kind word, take the step. And trust that what you do when no one's watching is what defines you when everyone is. That's the power of aligned action. That's where value lives, and no one, no critic, no algorithm, no stranger online can take that away from you. Conclusion. The journey back to yourself. So now we've come full circle. You didn't just learn 7 Stoic principles, you walked through something much deeper, a journey not out into the world, but back into yourself. Because the truth is, everything you've been searching for, strength, peace, clarity, freedom, it was never out there. It's always been inside you, buried under layers of noise, of overthinking, of reacting, explaining, proving. And these lessons, they weren't about turning you into someone new. They were about peeling away everything you're not, so you can return to everything you are. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to react to every provocation. You don't need the world's applause to walk in integrity. You only need you, rooted, clear, still acting, not from ego, but from principle, not from fear, but from self-respect. That's the real Stoic life, and it's not cold, it's not emotionless, it's not detached. It's disciplined warmth, it's power with grace, it's the kind of inner strength that lets you stay open, without falling apart. Because the goal isn't to become steel on the outside, it's to become steel within, so that you can still move with compassion, softness, and purpose, without letting the world drag you away from who you are. So maybe you've been wondering, where do I start? You start right here. Not with another book, not with another plan, not with perfection. You start with one moment, today, where you choose differently. Where you pause instead of react, where you let go instead of explaining, where you stay grounded even when others try to shake you. You won't always get it right, that's okay, because this isn't about being flawless. It's about being aware, and in that awareness, you grow stronger every day. Remember, no one can take your peace. Unless you hand it to them, no one can define your worth. Unless you let them, and no one can live your values, except you. So keep showing up, keep doing the quiet work, keep becoming the version of yourself that doesn't just survive the storm, but becomes the stillness inside it. And if this message resonated with you, if it made you pause, reflect, and see yourself even a little more clearly, then don't just scroll away. Like this video as a commitment to yourself, a simple, private promise that from this moment forward, you will protect your peace, live your values, and come home to yourself again and again. Because that's the path, and you're already on it.